Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, a new report takes a closer look at early literacy in the state. The city of Phoenix announces plans for its first ever poet laureate, and we'll meet American Indian journalist Mark Trahan. That's next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. A new report identifies various factors impacting early literacy in Arizona. The report focused on third grade literacy tests and was released at a recent literary summit by Read On Arizona, the state's early literacy initiative. Joining us now is Terry Clark, the director of Arizona Literacy, and Robert Vaghi, a researcher at ASU's Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College. Good to have you both here. Thanks for joining us. Give me a better definition. What exactly is Read On Arizona?
Well, Read On Arizona is the state's third grade reading initiative, and it's a public-private partnership of state agencies, community partners, nonprofits, all working to help improve literacy outcomes for kids birth through the end of third grade, because third grade is that key milestone to really academic success.
And as far as this report is concerned, kind of focused on third grade literacy tests. Am I getting this right?
Yes, we looked at the percentage of students passing third grade Ames reading at the school level across schools throughout the state.
So what exactly were you looking for in those test results?
So our goal wasn't necessarily to look at the test results, but to look at factors that were associated with different levels of passing third grade Ames reading. So we were looking for health variables or school level variables that just showed really strong relationships with third grade reading at the school level.
Levels such as what? I mean, variables such as what?
Oh, we had a lot. We had a lot. We had, I can't list them all right now, but we had school level attendance, we had school enrollment, we had percent poverty at the school level, we had the number of preschools in the zip code. We had health variables as well, asthma rates within the area. We had preterm births. We had a lot of things, and so we looked at all of them.
Let's talk about some of these variables. Poverty would seem like it would have to have some impact.
Yeah, I think that was one that's not a big surprise, but really to try to unpack that. And that's what this project really emerged out of, was looking at a number of data factors that have an impact on early literacy to say, in our own backyard, which ones are having the biggest or have sort of the most significant outcomes for kids that are struggling with reading. So that's where we know poverty is one, but and a national trend is to show chronic absenteeism, those kids that are missing 10% of school or more is one, but we didn't know if it was going to trend as the same in Arizona, and what we found is, yes, in our own backyard, that's a big one.
So student attendance a biggie, poverty also a biggie. The impact of charter status was mentioned as well. Talk to us about that.
Well, I think that one's the one where, and when we talk about this as an exploratory study, is that we need to do a little bit more. We need to dig a little deeper to find out what's going on there, but it's telling us to look in that direction. So that's where Rob's work and the study itself starts to say, we're using data to not just tell us sort of what's our temperature, but to tell us where we need to do a little bit more fact-finding and really understand what's causing some of these issues.
And thus, when the report is labeled exploratory in nature, that's what we're talking about here?
Yes, we just want a really broad view of what might be influencing third grade reading scores at the school level.
Things like community and health factors, talk to us about those, because those are the kinds of things that may kind of dovetail into other aspects of poverty and where you live and how you're raised and these sorts of things.
Exactly. So everything that we looked at in that study has been shown to relate to student achievement in some way in other studies. So with this analysis, the reason we say it was exploratory is we just wanted to find the strongest relationships independent of everything else. And so from that, we had poverty. That was obviously a really strong predictor of achievement. Charter status came out, but as Terry mentioned, there were two independent measures of school level attendance that predicted student achievement.
So it sounds like just getting the kid in the classroom is huge.
Exactly. And I think as a former teacher and as anyone who's taught students would tell you, that's just sort of an intuitive piece.
Second grade retention is also mentioned as well. Now, how does that factor into, because I know third grade is a pretty big grade here in Arizona as far as advancing and figuring out where a student is. Second grade retention, what did you find out?
Well, so it's important to point out that the purpose of the study was not to identify things that don't work or that don't matter, but just the things that had the strongest relationships.
Right.
That being said, we didn't find a significant relationship with second grade retention and third grade reading achievement.
Did it surprise you that there was no relationship there?
No, I think it's, you know, again, sometimes we're looking at the wrong things, or we're not paying as much as attention. So for your, you know, you said, so attendance matters. Yeah, you know, absences add up, and we know it, but we don't always drive strategies and continue to keep people focused on that over time. So for us, it was helping us to narrow the focus of where some of our real attention needs to be.
So where does that attention need to be?
So again, for us, we're going to double down on chronic absenteeism. We have some new data out, and we've been able to disaggregate that data even further, so we can say in kindergarten and first grade, for example, are the highest rates of chronic absenteeism, meaning that kids, the same kid, missing 18 or more days of school throughout the year, that adds up, and that's probably contributing to the reason they might be a grade or two below grade level.
Are we finding out why some of these kids are missing so much school?
This study didn't look at that, but I do think it's important to point out that in this analysis, the attendance rates were related to achievement above and beyond poverty. So I think a lot of people would say, well, there's sort of these factors associated with poverty that would cause students to miss school, and that is absolutely true and important. But what this analysis shows is that for all schools, regardless of poverty level, attendance rates are strongly related to third grade reading achievement.
So again, I saw in the report this, the relationships are correlational, not causal. What does that mean?
So if you've ever taken an introductory statistics class, you've heard that phrase before, and that's what's going on in this study. So the study is not meant to say that anything caused anything else with any degree of certainty. But that being said, we can come up with some reasonable theories about why we're seeing what we're seeing. And particularly with attendance rates, I think that theory is pretty strong, right? Kids need to be in classrooms to be learning.
So bottom line, if you're watching right now and you either got a kid this age, grandkid, neighbor kid, whatever, and you're hearing about this, what do you take from the report?
I think I take that absences add up, that the early years matter. So preschooler, kindergarten student, make sure you're getting them there, time on task, that's what's going to help them develop the skills that they need to be an excellent reader. I think that we need to understand more about what some of those barriers are for families as to why they're not getting to school, and a lot of that has to do with health issues, so making sure they're getting screened at the proper age, and for developmental screening, vision issues, health, dental. So there's a lot of things that we can be preventative and then and make sure kids are on the right track.
All right, very good. Good to have you both here. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate
Thanks
you.
for having us.
Tonight's edition of Arizona Art Beat looks at how the city of Phoenix announced today that it's kicked off the nominating process to name its first ever Poet Laureate. Here with more on the city's Poet Laureate search is Gail Brown, the Executive Director of the Phoenix Office of Arts and Culture. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
A Poet Laureate for the city of Phoenix.
Yes,
Why?
Yes. So Mayor Greg Stanton and Councilwoman Laura Pastor are leading this effort with support of the Office of Arts and Culture and the Phoenix Library to name a Poet Laureate for Phoenix. We just feel that the time is right. Our city is growing, and it would be wonderful if we could identify a writer to help us capture the uniqueness and cultural diversity of Phoenix. But we're also looking for someone who can kind of bring the message about the value of poetry and appreciation for poetry to young people, to kind of help us cultivate our next generation of readers and writers.
Indeed, it sounds like promoting poetry and the appreciation of poetry is a big deal here.
It is. And you know, this is a community in which the arts are flourishing on so many levels. And so it seems time that we should bring the literary arts kind of front and center in this conversation.
Now this is a 2-year term, correct?
This is a 2-year term. Right now we're in the process of nominating. So we've just announced today, in fact, this is the beginning of Arts and Humanities Month. So it seemed like an appropriate time to do it. It's a call for nominations, and we're asking poets who are interested in applying for the position or people in the community who would like to nominate someone else to be a part of this process.
As far as the nominating requirements, it can't just be anyone, correct?
No, that's right. I mean, you certainly, first of all, need to be a Phoenix resident, so that's a requirement. And then you need to have a body of work. But that can look like a number of different things. Either to have a book or a chapbook that has been published, to have a recording, because some poets are more of the spoken word type of poet, or I guess we might say a record of community service in education and in teaching poetry.
So if someone's watching this right now and they say, you know, I've written a lot of poems, but I haven't showed it to anyone, and I don't have any standing really as a poet. Do they even bother trying to be nominated? Because they could be wonderful poets.
Right. So I would say, while those qualifications are important and the body of work, you know, is something we are going to look at, I wouldn't discourage anyone from applying. I think another value of this process, it allows us to get a better sense of who's out there and who's writing and how might we better connect to them through our programs.
I'll bet you're going to get a lot of nominations. A lot of people write poetry. I'm not sure how many read poetry, but a lot of people write poetry.
And that's something else we would like to encourage through this, is more readership of poetry.
Must be willing to speak in public, I would imagine, make presentations,
That's
correct?
right. So the community engagement piece is really important in this role. We're expecting our poet laureate to do a number of different presentations. The library will host some of those presentations. And then, as I mentioned earlier, to engage with the community, I think especially children, young people, it's going to be important to have sort of a public face that they're willing to show.
And I guess for ceremonial purposes, if you want a poem, you got somewhere to go, correct?
That's right. I mean, there may be times when we ask a poet laureate to write a poem for a special occasion, an inauguration, or some other special moment.
I noticed, as far as the requirements for the job duties were concerned, you're supposed to collaborate with other city and state poet laureates. Now, I know our friend Alberto Rios is a state poet laureate.
Yes.
Do other Arizona cities have poet laureates?
Tucson does. Tucson has had a poet laureate for some years, and so we're hoping very much to create a dialogue, a conversation among poet laureates. And of course, we want to involve Alberto Rios in our process, and he's been an extraordinary poet laureate for the state of Arizona.
So, someone's watching this again, and they're interested in doing this. Do they have to have someone else nominate them?
No, they can nominate themselves just as well. However, we are asking for letters of reference or recommendation from organizations that the poet may have worked with, school groups, whatever makes the most sense for that person.
And again, how much do you need to see? As far as you know, output is concerned. I mean, you don't want to send 15 books over there, but you also want to make sure they can write more than one poem.
So a whole work. So if you go onto the website, we're going to define that more clearly for you.
Okay.
But that's how best to apply for the process.
Real quickly, how did this idea get started? I mean, did someone just sit there and go, I think this would be a neat idea?
Well, you know, this did come from the mayor's office, and Councilwoman Pastor was very eager for us to move forward on it. So there is a flourishing poetry community in Phoenix. We're seeing more and more readings, more and more publications arise. And of course, ASU, the creative writing program there, and the Virginia Piper Center for Creative Writing are also important influences in poetry. So, you know, it's just, I think, a growing awareness.
It sounds like they're out there. You just need to be heard and seen and read.
That's right. That's right, and we want to do what we can to try to elevate the art, not only the art form, but also our local writers.
Okay, one last question again, as far as if you're interested in this, where do you go? Is there a website to go to?
Yes, sir. Phoenix.gov/arts/poet laureate.
Phoenix.gov/arts/poet laureate.
Yes.
And if you can't spell laureate, you have no business being the poet laureate. Good luck on your search.
Thank you so much.
We can't wait to find out who wins.
Thank you.
Native Americans are changing the political landscape, so says Mark Trahant, an American Indian journalist whose blog covers a variety of Native American issues. Trahant is also a faculty member at the University of North Dakota and a former reporter at several papers, including the Arizona Republic. Here now to discuss the impact of Native Americans on American politics is Mark Trahant. Welcome to Arizona Horizon.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
Good to have you here as well. The impact of American Indians on American politics. What are you seeing out there?
You see 2 centuries where folks have kind of been disconnected. And then this year there's just been a blossoming, both in terms of numbers and more important in terms of talent. There's just an extraordinary group of people running for office across the country, from county commissions all the way up through Congress.
So things are changing. Why do you think they're changing?
I think people are starting to see opportunity. One of the findings in my blog that I think is most extraordinary is that we're now at 7 states that may hit parity with the population, where there'll be at least as many Native Americans in the legislature as a percentage of the population.
Interesting, interesting.
And I think that says a lot of good things.
When you say that American Indians are changing the political landscape, what do you mean?
Looking for new ways to define success, looking for new ways to get representation. I'll give you an example. One of the most successful state has been Montana. And in Montana, this now caucus of the state legislature got together and set priorities. One of those priorities was looking for ways to fund non-Indian students that attend tribal colleges, and pushed a bill through the legislature and just added them to the system.
Wow. I know some of the key issues out there, jobs, homes, these sorts of things, living conditions and that sort of thing. But there's an impact issue, Standing Rock and the Dakota Access Pipeline. Talk to us exactly. What are those things, and why are they so important to Native Americans?
The Dakota Access Pipeline and Standing Rock is the most extraordinary story I think I've ever witnessed as a reporter in 40 years. It's the first time in this century that tribes to come together from across North America, and including South America, and said, you know, this is something we share as a value. It started off as a simple fight over a pipeline and where it was located, but it's become much broader in terms of the impact on climate change, our values, kind of a broad cross-section of what's important going forward.
And it sounds as though you have American Indians speaking with one voice on this.
Very clearly. I'm just like I said, I've never seen anything like it, where people are coming together. And the other thing is, it's an extraordinary social media story. There'll be a post of an incident, and within an hour there'll be 700,000 views on Facebook.
I was going to ask how much of that single voice was on social media. The impact of social media on getting Native Americans just more involved. I mean, I would have to imagine it's helping quite a bit.
It is. It's kind of bringing together people from across Indian country, so people from Alaska can communicate on a daily basis with people from Arizona and share ideas and share dreams.
But a factor as well is getting access to the equipment needed to get online.
Right, and what's changed that is the cell phone. The cell phone is now the primary distribution vehicle.
Isn't that interesting? So there's so much concern with getting computers and PCs on reservation land. That has kind of taken a back seat now because everyone's connected anyway.
Right, it's mobile.
Isn't that
Mobile's
something?
Changed everything.
As far as American Indian thoughts on the presidential race, let's start talking politics here. What are you hearing out there?
By and large, except for Oklahoma and a couple other places, Indians tend to vote Democratic in pretty one-sided numbers. So that tends to factor into this election as well. I think the big question is, will millennials vote? And the same question with Native American young people is, what kind of numbers will they have? It's not where they're at, it's how many.
It's interesting. Why do Oklahoma Native Americans seem to veer Republican?
Probably stemming from the days of Andrew Jackson, where the Democratic Party had a bad name and it stuck for
Isn't that something?
A long time.
So those memories run pretty deep.
They do.
As far as the current candidates, I read, I think on your blog, that some folks are seeing Donald Trump. They may not agree with much of anything he does, but he's a change agent. And they see Hillary Clinton as the establishment. It's time for change. Are you hearing that?
A little bit, and I did write it. Where you see that is folks that were really for Bernie Sanders, and they kind of thought this Hillary Clinton is very much the establishment, and they wonder if Donald Trump would bring more of that. It's interesting because on the same level of discourse, you'll have them saying that about Donald Trump, and then they'll also talk about climate change and the federal government's role in that, when they're kind of contradictory positions.
Yeah, I was going to say, but it sounds interesting because I just want change. I just want something different out there, even if the difference is a little off the beaten track.
Exactly.
As far as Bernie Sanders, why do you think he connected so well?
There were a number of reasons. One, he really understood the importance of protocol. When they would go into a community, they would set up a protocol with tribal leaders where they would come on stage and go through the process and the steps. And it showed a great deal of respect, and I think that started it. The other was this, young people understand, I just saw a study from Harvard that 3 out of 4 recognize climate change as the big threat going forward. And he talked about that a lot. And in a way that's not just, yes, climate change is real, but we've got to start taking real steps to make changes.
Yeah. As far as turnout is expected, American Indian voters, you expect to see a higher percentage this go around?
Well, 2 states, this is another one of those great stories that doesn't get reported very often, but 2 states, Native Americans actually vote in higher percentages than the other population groups, New Mexico and Montana. So we'll see whether that starts to spread across Indian country.
I read as well, I think, on your blog that as far as millennials, Native American millennials growing at a faster rate than any other group in the country. Is that true?
Indian country's population is very young and growing much faster.
So are there get out, you mentioned getting that millennial vote out. Are there get out the vote efforts underway, and what are you seeing?
There's a number of them, and the big one, the big push I think from a lot of voter organization type groups is to vote early. And the advantage of an early vote is you don't forget the last minute at the polls, you're done. And so there's a big push to get people to get absentee ballots where possible, vote by mail, whatever takes that out of the equation.
Interesting. Okay, you're a journalist, been a journalist for a long time, Native American. Journalism and American Indians, what's that dynamic like?
Well, I think journalists are natural storytellers, and there's certainly a storytelling tradition in most American Indian cultures, so that fits together perfectly. Where we've missed out is there just haven't been enough people to have representation in the media. For example, national television had 1 Native American, and when she retired from CBS, that was it. So I think we have to do better in terms of getting representation.
How do you do better?
Get hiring editors and television news directors to take a chance. Local TV does actually pretty well, but on the national scale, there's a ways to go.
As far as places like New Mexico, Oklahoma, Montana, do you see more journalists there?
Yes, yes, and Arizona. At the local level, there's some good success stories.
You know, I'd mentioned that the growing at a faster, young folks growing at a faster rate than the rest of the country. Are there folks out there to keep an eye on as far as leadership is concerned? Political leadership, but leadership in general. Are there names that we will be hearing here in the coming years?
Absolutely. In fact, my punchline for the talk I'm giving tonight, but in a blog post, is the leadership almost always comes from state legislatures. And if you want to know who the first American Indian president of the United States is going to be, I would look to the state legislatures and see who's a star. And I suggest her name would be Paulette or Denise or somebody like that.
So you think, are those specific people you're talking about?
Oh, yeah.
And where are they right now?
Montana, Idaho, Minnesota. Peggy Flanagan in Minnesota is one that's just a real star coming up.
Fantastic. And we should mention, you are speaking to Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication students tonight. What are you going to talk to them about?
About the election, and we'll go through some of the data and some of the races and have a good conversation.
And real quickly, if there's one thing that surprises you from the data you had so far, what is it?
How deep the talent is. We hear so much about the challenges of Indian country, but rarely about the really remarkable people that are leading the next generation.
It feels like an optimistic time, is it not?
I think so.
Yeah. All right, good to have you here.
Thanks
for joining us, we appreciate it. Tuesday on Arizona Horizon, we'll hear about transit improvements in Phoenix thanks to a new voter-approved plan. And best-selling author Lori Natero talks about her new historical novel on the race to be the first woman to pilot a transatlantic flight. And a reminder, we will join you live after tomorrow night's vice presidential debate with full analysis along with a look at the history of the vice presidency. That's tomorrow night after the vice presidential debate right here on Arizona Horizon. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Funding for Curate, The Arizona Arts and Culture Fund is made possible by Signal Society members Eleanor Light and Judith Hards, and by you can become a curator of the arts on Arizona PBS. For more information, call 602-496-8888.